Karana Shariram Kim.
Karana Shariram Kim.
Anirvachanadi.
Anirvachanadi.
Avidyarupam.
Avidyarupam.
Shariradvayasya.
Shariradvayasya.
Karanamatram.
Karanamatram.
Satsvarupa janam.
Satsvarupa janam.
Nirvikalpa karupam.
Nirvikalpa karupam.
Yadasti.
Yadasti.
Tat Karana Shariram.
Tat Karana Shariram.
So, without a cause, there is no effect. This is the rule, right? Every effect will have a cause. So what is this Shariram? This is the third, this is a model of three body model that the Shastra has for every being. The causal body, the Sukshma, the subtle body, and the physical body. This causal body is the, as I said, the cause for the effect. What is the effect? The subtle body and the physical body are the effects. Okay. Atma conditioned by the subtle body assumes, we've seen that in Bhagavad Gita, it comes up again and again. At the moment, it's, everybody's consumed with this subtle body. But what happens? Atma conditioned by the subtle body assumes another physical body. It gives up what we saw in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavan says, Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya. Just as one throws off old clothes, the physical body is thrown off. And the subtle body, it gives up the present physical body and it enters another body, another place, another time, another parentage. Everything changes. Okay, this is the subtle body. And what is the cause for that subtle body? What is the cause for it entering into another physical body? This is what the cause is. Sharira dvayasya karana matram. This body is the cause for the other two bodies. It is the seed. It is called bija, seed. It is the seed for the stula and the sukshma sharira. These two are nothing without the karana. Without the seed, they cannot manifest, right? The seed is in this, the potential. And when do you go into potential form? You can see, you have experience of entering this potential form every night when you go to sleep. You are in potential then. Where is your identification with the physical body? There is no identification at all with the physical body in sleep, right? Where is the identification even with the mind? In deep sleep, there is total what? Potentiality. Nothing is manifest, right? You're totally gone. Only the prana, the prana, actually, the cause and effect are essentially the same. This is another thing that we have to see. Because in the cause, the seed, if you take a seed and take like an oak tree seed, right? You take that seed. The oak tree is very much present in that seed. You may not be able to see it because in that state, it is in, we'll see that undifferentiated condition. There are no parts in the seed, right? You cannot see it. It is totally invisible. It is but you cannot say the tree does not exist in the seed. Because when you put the seed in the ground, there is a rise from the seed of the tree. How does that happen? Because the potential was already there in the seed. It's the same way here. One potential which is in your Karana Shariram is the cause is there. The effect inheres also in the cause. The cause inheres the effect. The effect must already be in the cause. That's what Shastra says. Otherwise, it cannot manifest. You were inherent already in your parents. You are in potential form, in bija avastha, seed form in your parents, in your father's sperm and your mother's egg. Potentiality, okay? And this is why we could, we talk about this, all of this stem cell research and all of this is working on the science is actually discovering this. more and more, they're coming to see that there's a cause for what about hereditary diseases, all of that, because there's some cause latent that gives rise to certain genes, right, within a certain lineage where you are susceptible to certain diseases and certain illnesses. That is what we call Karana. Karana for us, that storage of that intelligence, that knowledge is stored in the Karana Shariram. And the DNA, we talk about DNA. What is DNA according to our Shastra? That is where all your vasanas, all your samskaras, all the things, why do you behave the way you do? Why do you think the way you do? Why do you, interact the way you do with the Jagat? It is due to certain vasanas that you brought with you into this life. Where are those vasanas stored? They have their expression through the Sukshma and the Stula. All your behavior has expression through the subtle body, which in turn expresses through the physical body. But where is the storage for that? Where is the microchip for that? That is in your Karana Shariram. And again, science is accessing all of this. They say DNA, right? DNA in the field of, I read some article on a very interesting field that is being researched now called epigenetics, where they talk about these potentials. You should read that. I'll send something to the group. Very interesting. You come with this DNA map. You come with the genetic map in life. We call that prarabdha karma. That is what is known as karma in our Shastra. But what manifests when you can, due to environment and due to influence, external influences, due to your own free will being used to change your mind stuff. That's why I always say, keep with satsang, keep with spiritual company, keep your mind on Bhagwan and higher pursuits, because you have every power to manifest certain genes or certain traits in you. You can trigger those manifestations. This is what the new field is now discussing. It's called epigenetics. And it's very important for people to know, for children, because the environment that the child is in, it really determines what manifests for them in their adulthood as well. Extremely interesting because it doesn't contradict our Shastra. Again, our Shastra never contradicts science, because what the rishis have said is absolute fact, because it's pramana. So only science is now discovering what has already been said in the Veda thousands of years ago, right? So all of this, again, Karana Shariram is being understood in this way. Stula and Sukshma, they become manifest from the Karana, and they go back into unmanifest after death, into the Karana, right? So Karana Shariram, in fact, it is, you are always in potential form, Karana, which is also a form of a subtle body, because you cannot see it. It is imperceptible, but it exists according to our Shastra. There is this causal body, and this is where everything goes into unmanifest form, and then you come back into manifest form. Again, as I said, you are never ever gone for good. That is our worst fear, that we go for good. And we never, Shastra says, you are never gone for good. You are always in two states. You are either manifest or unmanifest. You're a seed or a tree. You're brilliant, right? You're either manifest meaning you people and people can see you in a particular form and you're able to interact. Otherwise, you're in unmanifest condition. These are the only two states you can be in. There's no such thing as death. Okay? We even see this in science, another scientific law of conservation. What is that? Basic science, right? Energy and matter, what? They're never destroyed, right? They always go. This is exactly what is happening with our Karana Shariram. Our stula goes back to the 5 elements where it belongs. Because it is made from 5 elements, it goes back to 5 elements. The Sukshma is what is recycled. The energetic part, it always gets recycled. That's why you pick up another body. So all you're doing is transforming from one form to another. Nothing is ever created, right? All forms, this is another thing that we have to understand. All forms exist before in unmanifest condition, in Bija Avastha, it's called potential condition. So what is creation now? Creation is just manifestation of those seeds, everything in seed form, right? It is called in Sanskrit vyakta, which is manifest, and avyakta, unmanifest. So what is the cause, you may ask, for my manifestation? It is much nice to, instead of saying I was born, you should say now, when is your manifestation day? You know, instead of birthday, we should say manifestation day. I manifested on this date. We'll have a new, new thing now, manifestation day. What is the cause for your manifestation? It is karma. That is what our Shastra says. Your karma is the cause for your re-manifestation. The sukshma and stula are all combinations. Okay, there's potentiality of every combination of physical form you can take, every combination of the even the subtle form body you can take. We've also seen this before. You also have, I'm sorry to say, you have you have a combination to become an elephant also stored there. Everybody has all potentials. You have a combination of becoming a plant as well. It's all stored in your Karana Shariram. Then don't worry, because you're studying Vedanta, Krishna's promise. So, I don't want questions after the class saying, Nandanaji, I don't want to come back as a cockroach. Please promise. I don't. So you will not have, Bhagavan says very clearly, you are not going to have an inferior birth. Okay. When you come to Vedanta, he will only give you the chance to pick up the thread again in the next janma. And we saw it, and he said 2 types of lives he will give. One, either in a very rich and wealthy family who are very cultured, you will be born in such a family, or you will be born in a poor family, but they're karma yogis, and they're also very, very educated. So, in fact, of the 2 births, Shankaracharya says the second one, which is Daridra Brahmana, the poor one, but very educated, very cultured, is actually the best of the 2 births. Because wealth can drag your mind away. There is every potentiality of wealth because too much is available when there's wealth available. So it's very difficult, even Jesus said that, no, it's very difficult. What did he say? It's difficult for a rich man to go to heaven as a camel to go through an eye of a needle or something like that. He said that. And it's like that because there's so much desires which get triggered when you have a lot of wealth and a lot of things access to you. But anyway, that aside, just going back to this, it is karma is the cause for you to re-manifest in this world. You come back into manifestation because of your karma, okay? And you don't know what combination that karma is going to take. That's the amazing thing. Who decides then? Who decides what body you get? Who decides what sukshma goes with the body? Who decides what vasanas must manifest in a particular lifetime? That is called the supercomputer. Supercomputer Ishvara. Karma Phaladata. He is the giver of the results of your actions. You are not in control of that. People often say, I must have chosen in my past life to come to this family to work out. There's this theory that you have choice over your birth. Shastra never says you have choice over your birth. You are not the cause for your manifestation of particular life. It is that supercomputer. Somehow it figures out all sorts of combinations and it brings you into manifestation with a certain set of karmas you have to exhaust in one lifetime. And that's very important to know. You come with a map of karmas, right? Then you may ask, then the question will come, well, if my karmas have been mapped out in this life, what's the point in making any effort? That always the number one question. Where is free will here if my destiny is already there? So we always say, no, Bhagavan is not that dumb. He has not bestowed you with free will for nothing. You do have a freedom of choice. But how do you exercise that choice if your destiny is already there? You exercise your choice on how to face your destiny. That is very important. Whatever comes into your life is your destiny. Whatever you're dealt with, whatever cards, you cannot change sometimes the cards that you get in life. You cannot change that. But how do you face your life? That is in your hands. Do you sit back and say, no, oh, it's my karma fate, and then become depressed and say, no, We say Bhagavan has blessed the human being with the will to decide. You have choice over your way you react to situations in life. So that is free will becomes very important. And you exercising that free will also give you the ability to ward off. We say ward off bad things manifesting. In fact, you can exercise the free will in the right direction through prayer and worship and all of this to actually clear off papa karma. It's called prayaschitta karma. You clear off papa and you keep creating good, better and better karma. That is why we say, even if, there's this saying, right? Why do good things happen? Why do bad things happen to good people? I think I saw a book like that. Why do bad things happen to good people? They can't explain. And people say, I've been dharmic all my life. I followed ethics. I followed values, and always bad things are happening in my life. Why? Why? This is the law of karma. Because action that you do in this particular moment doesn't mean you'll get the result that action is due to bring in. We have to be very careful here. My present action need not be connected with the result that I'm facing. This is the problem we make, because we think I'm doing this. Why am I getting this? Because doesn't work like that. The law of karma doesn't work. It does not mean, however, that your present action goes to waste. That always goes in storage for you. It is never wasted. That's why we always say, keep doing good. Keep doing what is right. Because that action is stored for your future there, in agami, in the form of agami karma. And that is going to also be talked about in Tattva Bodha. He's going to talk about that. So you keep doing the correct action. Never get dejected and despondent because, you're getting bad results. There are periods like that in everyone's life. People say Sadhe Sati, 7-year Saturn period, or Ashtama Shani. Poor Shani, Saturn gets blamed for all the bad luck in people's lives, right? I feel very sorry for that planet. Such a beautiful planet, but it gets all the blame. And there's big fat Jupiter sitting with his red spot, and he gets all the credit for all the good that happens in people's life. Oh, Guru must be good in the chart. Guru is giving all of this, right? So it is not the planets to blame. So I remember one of my teachers saying, when you have anugraha, why do you worry about grahas? Very beautiful pun on Sanskrit word. When you have anugraha, why do you bother about grahas? Which means, when you have the Lord's grace, why do you bother about planets? And that's exactly how we should live our life. We act for grace. Our action is to invoke Bhagavan's grace in our life, because grace is the greatest protector. Then we don't have to worry about planets. We don't have to worry about anything, because once you have grace, Bhagavan's grace in your life, then your very challenges become, he can turn your mountains into molehills, not molehills into mountains. It's the other way around. All the problems that seem like mountains, they become like molehills with grace. So whatever challenges you have to go through in life, we keep doing good, because doing the right action, doing the right thing at the right time, following dharma invokes the grace of the Lord. And that is also in potential form. You have to be very, very clear about that. That grace is there to be tapped by everybody. Everybody has their reservoir of grace to be tapped. Nobody is exempt from grace. But the only thing is, you have to tap that grace. And tapping that grace is doing these actions like Panchamaha Yajnas. I sent that. Please do go over it if you haven't gone over it. All these type of actions, being a contributor, worship, but living in this order, in the harmony with Ishvara. When you're living in harmony with Ishvara, you invoke this grace, and that grace is like, it's like you keep it as a savings account. When you're broke, when you're unemployed, nothing's going, you can tap on your savings account to protect you, right? So you have to keep that grace account up. So anyway, karma, going back to the topic, karma is the cause for rebirth. And he also says, with this, describing the Karana Shariram, he says, nirvikalpa rupam, which is very important. You might have heard of nirvikalpa samadhi, right? We've heard of nirvikalpa samadhi, but here it says nirvikalpa rupam, which means there is no distinction in Karana Shariram, no differentiation, okay? No differentiation, no distinction. What does that mean? Everything is an undifferentiated condition there. There are no, in Karana Shariram, there are no things like you cannot see, there are no components, there's no jnanendriyani, there's no karmendriyani, there's no limbs, there's no body. It's pure potential, like a seed. When you split a seed, what do you see in the seed? Do you see the leaves of the tree in the seed? Do you see the bark? Do you see the trunk? Do you see the branches? You don't see anything. When you break a seed, it is pure potential, right? That is exactly what Karana Shariram is. The different aspects of you are in potential form, unmanifest, like in the tree and the seed. And only in the waking state do the differences start forming. We can see from the earliest time, the fetus, the limbs start forming when you do an ultrasound, right? The baby is just forming. It's very interesting to see. It's like a blob at the beginning, but how does it, differentiation starts taking place? This is what happens. It starts differentiating, and that's potential of differentiation is in the Karana Shariram, right? And I said, every evening you experience this undifferentiated state. When is that? When you go into sleep, okay? When you go into sleep, Karana Shariram is active. It is only deep sleep where Karana Shariram is active. The ego, your ego, that I, that clings so much to this external world, this waking state. I am this much. These are my people. This is my family. This is my son. This is my, or that I expression of I. Where is it gone in sleep? There is no I. It resolves. No ahankara to interact. No senses to interact. Where is the jagat for you? The physical world is as good as non-existent in sleep, right? So this is what Karana Shariram is. All the differences disappear in sleep, okay? At the same time, there's no form of knowledge in Karana Shariram either, because only when there's divisions will knowledge take place. It's very interesting to understand this. It is Karana Shariram is total ajnanam, total ignorance. That's why they say ignorance is bliss, right? We don't like to get up out of sleep because we're in total ignorance. We're in bliss in deep sleep. So if somebody wakes us up, we want to hit them because I'm so happy. Ignorance is bliss. I don't like to be woken up from my bliss. Why? Because no knowledge is there. There is no knower, known knowledge difference. For knowledge to take place, there has to be a knower. There has to be known, right? There has to be vikalpas, differences. But you're in a total state of ignorance. There's no difference at all. So who is to know what? There's nothing to know anything else. So in this, this is Karana Shariram, and nirvikalpa samadhi, interestingly as well. We say nirvikalpa samadhi. What is that? There's no differences. There's also no differences in nirvikalpa samadhi. And Ashtanga yoga, the 8-limbed yoga of Patanjali, it is the final step for him. But for us, it's not final. Why? Because it is nirvikalpa, means it is without difference, but it is a state one enters. And you've all heard this, I mean, people who've studied with me for some time, that when you enter into a state, you have to come out of that state. Anything with entry has to have an exit. You cannot have it's not forever, okay? It has an end. So nirvikalpa samadhi is also non-dual experience. There's no experience of subject and object. Awareness is there, okay? Awareness is there, no experience of subject and object. It is just like deep sleep, but deep sleep, you're totally ignorant. In nirvikalpa samadhi, you're aware. Awareness is there. But what is the difference between, I want to make it clear because a lot of you do yoga as well. What is the difference between nirvikalpa samadhi and janam, moksha? In nirvikalpa samadhi, you cannot have vyavahara, you cannot have interaction with the world. That is why in our Puranas, you see the rishis sitting with anthills growing around them, right? You see them, all people who realize people sit like that with no body consciousness, anthills and this growing around them, and they're sitting like that in samadhi. Yes, they are in samadhi, but there's no interaction with the world because nirvikalpa, there's no vikalpa, no change. So you cannot have interaction. Everything is resolved. What is the difference in Vedanta then? We don't resolve anything. Vedanta, nothing is resolved. You have the same problems, you face the same people, you do everything the same. then what's the difference? Non-dual vision is there with you when you do all of these things. It is a cognitive shift. So the change is cognitive. It is not something to do with sitting and resolving the mind totally in nirvikalpa samadhi. It is a vision that you gain through the teaching. Vision of non-dual despite the multiplicity, despite duality. And dealing, you still manage to deal with multiplicity, but you're free inside in dealing. That is the uniqueness of Vedanta. It is knowledge that allows you to be very much in the world, but not of the world. You're in the world, but you're free of the world. That is true freedom. You don't have to go anywhere to do that. And that is what Vedanta, the uniqueness of Vedanta, compared to, I have to say, Patanjali Yoga, although very good for adhikaritvam. He's excellent. He gives you all the steps to develop your mind, to become adhikari, to give you that type of mind, to be able to realize the truth. But Vedanta goes that one step further, which Vedanta says you don't have to enter in any state. You can be in that vision all your life and be free in whatever you're doing. So that is very important to know. He also says it's satsvarupa ajnanam. So here, sat is reality. We saw that, sat. We've gone through sat a lot. Sat is consciousness, the one reality, which lends existence to mithya. Okay, mithya is the dependent reality. So sat swarupa ajnanam, here he's saying, in the Karana Shariram, when you're identified with Karana Shariram, there is total ignorance regarding that which is real. Okay, which means what? Karana Shariram is always active in us. Because when are we not ignorant of what is real, right? So it is very much, ignorance is Karana Shariram. So we can see in many areas of our life, ignorance is totally active. In fact, it's very interesting. Swami Dayananda used to say, the more you know, the more ignorant you become. How does that work? Because you gain knowledge of so many things, then you realize your ignorance of all those things. Because you don't know those things. So that actually the less you know, the easier things are. The simple life is actually better, because that is why these kids these days have a lot of problems, because they're exposed to so many things with this media, that media, so much. They're bombarded with information, and what happens? There's a pressure to know, and that you cannot know everything, right? There's so much pressure. It's very difficult, because somebody says, oh, didn't you try this latest app? This app has come out. Why aren't you using this app? Then you have to learn something totally new. Then more pressure for the kid. I have to keep up with this latest app, So the more knowledge one has of this world, one realizes that ignorance is highlighted. So Karana Shariram becomes more active the more you know. So it's better to know the one thing, Shastra says, the one thing knowing which all is as well known, which is Atma Jnanam. Okay, so Karana Shariram is also Anadi. He says here, Anadi means there's no beginning for Karana Shariram. What does that mean? Well, you have to understand it that the beginning cannot be conceived or understood. Why? Because if everything's in potential form, the instrument to understand the beginning of the thing, where is it? It is in potential. It is not even manifested yet. The buddhi, the mind, is not even manifested from the karana to become the subtle body. How can that thing, which is not yet manifested, know the beginning of a state before it? So it is called beginningless. There is no buddhi. I'll give you an example of this. Because if you set the alarm, if you set the alarm for 5 a.m. in the morning and you wake up at 10 a.m., right? You wake up at 10, you set the alarm at 5. A lot of people are looking at each other. Obviously, that happens a lot. You set the alarm at 5 and you wake up at 10. Where is time for you? There is no time if the buddhi is not there, right? There is no buddhi active during the sleep. So in the same way, if the buddhi doesn't know where time is, how can it know? When it's resolved, it cannot know time. So it cannot know the beginning of Karana Shariram. We cannot know the beginning. That is why it's called Anadi, beginningless. which means we cannot know the beginning, because that which knows beginnings and ends is not yet born. It is still in potential. Swami Chinmayananda used to have a really good example. It's like the son, a son complaining to his father. He's having an argument with his father, complaining, why didn't you invite me to the wedding with mother? Why wasn't I invited to your wedding? Because he had not even come into manifestation yet, right? How can you complain you are not at the wedding when you are not even manifest yet? So it's just like that. To understand the beginning of Karana Shariram, it is impossible because you're not even there yet, right? So this is Karana Shariram. And the last thing, which is very, very important, I'm going to leave it because the word he brings in is avidya. Again, very, very, it has to be unfolded. Avidya means ignorance. The Karana Shariram is in the form of ignorance. And it's mula avidya, or the root. Mula means root, root ignorance, because from this ignorance, every other ignorance springs, ignorance of everything else. So sat that we saw is what is real, what is the reality. Sat, satyam, sat, all of these words are names given to the reality. And they're ontological terms, which means, ontological means the study of realities, okay, various realities. So sat is the truth, the one real thing that everything else boils down to. So everything else is called mithya, we saw that, and it comes down to the one sat. Everything in this whole universe resolves into its causes. You can see effect resolves into cause, and that cause that you think also resolves into another cause, because you see, when you analyze any object in this universe, nothing is purely just cause, right? It is all effect, cause, effect, cause. You keep breaking things down, and where do you end up? Final cause, you may say, is atoms. Then atoms are now also being broken down into smaller particles, right? So those particles, where people did, recently, a few years back, they said they discovered the God particle, which was the smallest ever particle. But I think now they're discovering smaller particles than God particles. So where do we go? That is what, everything is dependent on something else. So what our rishis have said is that you cannot keep going further. There is one causeless cause into which everything resolves. And that is called satyam or sat. But in this Karana Shariram, satsvarupa ajnanam, which means there's total ignorance of this reality. There is no knowledge of this reality, okay? There is ignorance regarding that which is real. And it is anadi. We saw that also. There's no beginning. We have to understand beginningless. How do we understand? We saw last time a bit of logic was applied. We saw we cannot understand it as beginningless. It's very, very difficult to understand something beginningless. So we have to understand the instrument to understand time is not even manifest, right? It is still in potential form in the Karana Shariram, the Sukshma Shariram, which contains your mind, your intellect, is in potential form, and you're trying to use that instrument when it comes manifest to understand a state before it existed. It is not possible, right? It did not exist before. In the beginning, when the Karana Shariram, if there was a beginning to the Karana Shariram, it is not understandable. So we say it cannot be conceived, it cannot be understood. So we use this word in Sanskrit, anadi, it's beginningless, because we don't know, basically. It's just like the Big Bang. People don't really know, whether it happened or it didn't happen. We don't know. So this is another word he uses. And avidya, we saw this. This is, we didn't see this clearly, but avidya again means ignorance. Ignorance, it is ignorance. It's in the form of ignorance, and it brings about changes without really, what is ignorance? Ignorance is a seeming something. It doesn't really exist. It brings about changes without really changing anything. In fact, it's like Maya. So Maya and avidya are sometimes synonymously used. Maya is that which brings about changes as though, but there's not really any change, right? So avidya means total ignorance. There is absolutely no knowledge there in Karana Shariram at all. And it is also anirvachaniya. That's another word. Anirvachaniya is again describing the same thing. Sat asad bhyam anirvachaniya is the description for this word. Anirvachaniya means you cannot say totally that it's existing. At the same time, you cannot say it's totally non-existent, right? So this is exactly, again, our favorite prop. I use it for everything. Can you see that prop? Our favorite prop, the clay pot, the Rishi's clay pot. This has come down for thousands of years, this prop. Not this particular one, but you know, it is, otherwise it would be very, very rare. But it is like this. When you see the pot, is the pot totally existent? You can say, yes, you can say it is so, it is existent, it does exist. But when we examine, then what about clay? When I ask you the questions, you always have to ask, what about clay? Then what will your answer be? The pot isn't totally existent by itself, right? It is clay. The truth of the pot is nothing but clay. There is only clay here. It is not really pot. It is only clay. But at the same time, you cannot deny your perception of pot. You cannot say it's totally non-existent either, because you see, there's a name, there's a form, there's a function. The pot holds water, or the pot can hold something. Clay by itself cannot hold anything. It doesn't have a particular name or form or function. This is exactly the meaning of anirvachaniya. You cannot say it exists totally. You cannot say it doesn't exist totally. It's an in-between existence. In-between existence is the same thing that's applied to the gross body. It's the same thing that's applied to the sukshma shariram, to the subtle body as well. There's an in-between existence. What does that mean? When it's born, it is as though name and form, it comes into existence. It, for a length of time it lasts, we saw that the sixfold changes, right? Shatvikara. It grows, it changes, it declines, and then what happens? Poof, it vanishes. Where is that person gone? Amazing. Miracle. Where's that being gone? Or where is that thing gone? It is, again, this is the meaning of anirvachaniya. It is not totally unreal, because for a while we interact with the particular stula shariram. We interact with the particular sukshma shariram, which is in the stula, for interaction to happen. And suddenly it is disappeared, vanished. So it is not totally existent, not totally non-existent. This is how we have to understand it. And yeah, I don't want to go into too much, but that is, Karana Shariram is exactly like that. It doesn't really, it's not totally existent. At the same time, it's not totally non-existent, but it explains a lot of things that we have to undergo in this life. We have to go through a lot of karmas and things like that. So it's a very good model that the rishis have discovered for explaining our life on this earth, you know, this three-body model.